be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs, and we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
Welcome back to Legendary Foods Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today is Thursday, March 10th, 2022. And let's find out what's going on in the world of bodybuilding and fitness. I know there are a lot of metaphors out there about bodybuilding being a marathon and not a sprint, but that doesn't mean that there isn't something to be said for coming out of the gates fast. And since Ahmad Ashkanani is the only 212 athlete in the Pro League to have a win so far this year, it does leave just about everyone else on the roster trying to play catch-up. Recently, there's been a rumor floating around about Ahmad potentially targeting the Kuwait Classic later this month as the next stop on his 2022 World Tour. And considering the fact that the show is basically in his backyard, it makes sense for it to be the next landing spot. And if he can start the season off with 2 really strong wins under his belt, I think it will go a long way towards reminding people of how good he is when he's at his best. And if he could start the season off with 2 really big, strong wins under his belt, I think it will go a long way towards reminding people of how good he is when he's at his best, because he's still got plenty of gas left in that tank to make a serious run at the Olympia title. Now that the Arnold is officially in the books, we have some time to touch on a few other underlying stories that had an impact on last weekend, including the real reason why Cedric McMillan was forced to pull out of the show at the last minute. A few days ago on his Instagram, Cedric said that he's been dealing with an undiagnosed gastrointestinal problem for the last few weeks that's led to all sorts of various health issues that have impacted his sleep. No sleep, no recovery. His ability to get food down after meals has been affected, and a few other things that he discussed at length during the video. And to his credit, Cedric had managed to tough it out for a while because of how much competing in the show meant to so many people. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't feasible because of how much it was starting to impact his day-to-day life. But at the moment, we do know that he's receiving treatment, and it does seem to be moving things in the right direction. So hopefully he can get himself to a point where health is no longer a major concern, and we'll see him on stage before the end of the season. And maybe even to have him back on that Olympia stage, and another vintage Cedric McMillan performance. Listen, you know your off-season is moving in the right direction when you have to start using powerlifting bands to keep the plates on the machine when you're training legs, like our old friend, Jon Delarosa. After taking all of last year off to focus on some other business ventures outside of bodybuilding, it looks like the 2-time Olympian is starting to get his championship swagger back. In the not-too-distant past, there was a time when Jon was widely regarded as someone who had the talent to be a top 10 athlete in the Open Olympia. And when you see clips like this, it gives you a good reminder of how special he can be. At this point, I don't believe there's been any official word from the Delarosa camp about a potential show date yet this year. But historically, he's done well at big shows like the New York Pro, Chicago, and Tampa. So it shouldn't come as a big shock if we end up seeing him back in action at some point before the end of the summer. And before we sign off today, we've got another brand new update from Patrick Moore coming your way. According to Patrick, one of the prime objectives during this off-season has been to get thicker and wider from the back, which helped to give him a more complete look and potentially allow him to compete for a top 10 Olympia spot again this year. Anyone who's been following Patrick's career for the last few years has seen how he's grown by leaps and bounds, to the amazement of all the fans. So there's really no reason to think that we wouldn't see him continue on that same upward trajectory this season. So as long as he can stay patient and not try to rush the process, it seems like it's only a matter of when, not if. And that does it for yet another edition of Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, reminding you to always be true to your passions, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.